Let's pray. Father, first of all, we thank you for the privilege we have to be able to have a relationship with you and to call you our Father. Thank you for the privilege we have to come before you. Lord, we are so blessed as a people today. You have blessed us abundantly, and we thank you so much for that. We're reminded, as Abraham Lincoln mentioned, that we are blessed bountifully. We're protected, we're provided for, but yet in many cases we have forgotten you. We pray that you'll call our country back to a revival, back to remembrance of where we came. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege we have of living in this county and in this city. Thank you for the blessings that are ours because of that. And Lord, we pray that as our public servants meet today, that you'll give them wisdom, that you'll give them clarity and direction. Help them to make decisions that will be for the best of our city, for the best of our area, for the best of its people. Give the direction that's needed. Give wisdom and insight. We pray in your name. Amen.
Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Vach?
Mr. Fletcher?
Here.
Ms. Graves?
Here.
Mrs. Turner?
Here.
Mr. Kramer?
Here.
Mayor Winger?
Here. Preliminary matters, agenda additions, deletions, or adoption as it stands.
Mr. Mayor, yes, I have a question. In our last meeting, according to our minutes on page 21, it said that we had a motion to table the discussion on the FPL issue for the next meeting. It was passed 3-2, and I did not see that item on this agenda.
I will be glad to make another motion to table it because, as you know, there's been two conversations the city manager and I have had with Florida Power and Light, and they would, of course, like to meet with FMPA, and we would like them to do so. But they asked us to meet first. Let me explain, please. And secondly, we got a letter from FMPA. I think it would be better serve the public if we deal with this issue at the meeting following the occasion where the city manager and Mr. Comment and I will visit with them. That's why it's not on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
if you'd like to put it on
certainly
the agenda, put it on.
Mr. Mayor, certainly may be the end result of it. But following procedure, when we have a table motion that needs to be brought up at this meeting, I move that it be added to this agenda.
Second that motion.
Do we want to vote a roll call on that, Mrs. Vach or Boyce?
I have a point of order. I don't know when the time to bring a point of order is. Would one of you call a point of order? Because before
Not
you
with the
accept
motion
these
on the
minutes,
floor.
No, it wouldn't be appropriate.
would you tell me when to do an at a program? Will you
Yes,
call me
sir.
up to do a point of order on accepting the minutes and the agendas, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
And when we solve this issue, you may come up.
I will call the roll on the motion. Mr. Fletcher?
Yes.
Ms. Graves?
No.
Mrs. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Kramer?
No.
Mayor Winger?
No. Mr. Wilson.
I know this
Point of order is
I know
always
this
in
is
order.
unusual. It is a point of order. Partially the same question to the city attorney is: you had this on the agenda and you had it voted on on the agenda. I don't know how it got off the agenda, but even moreover, tomorrow you have a meeting of the Utilities Commission. A vote by this council voted to order the Utilities Commission to do a review of the item before them. All of a sudden now you have removed that from tomorrow's agenda from the Utilities Commission, and it is now past the deadline to advertise for an agenda. So my first question is under point of order: what authority does the mayor or the city clerk have to remove something from the agenda without a vote of the council?
I will answer that question, Mr. Wilson. I did not remove the tabling from the agenda. I don't know why it's not on it. We've resolved that we're not going to hear it tonight, but I did not remove it. I do have no knowledge of anyone doing it on purpose.
Well, you resolved not hearing it tonight, but you did not resolve the issue of how something gets removed from the agenda either today or tomorrow without authorization of this council once it's been voted on by the council.
To answer your question, I do not know why it's not on the agenda.
Then that's why it's a point of order to the city attorney. How did this not get on the agenda, and under what circumstances can it be removed from the agenda? And thirdly, does that mean that the Utilities Commission tomorrow, as ordered by this council without a vote tonight, will take that up?
Mr. Wilson, one other point of order for you. This city council did not give instructions to either commission to look into anything other than, and you can look at the minutes if you like, anything other than issues having to do with costs and rates at the utility, not having to do with this particular issue. Now, your other question is a point of order, and Mr. Comet will have to answer.
Thank you.
As far as what was on the agenda, that is up to the clerk, and I don't know if Tammy can tell us.
I did receive an email from Amy Brunges asking that it not be heard tonight.
And she is
From FPNL.
okay, but that my point of order stands, City Attorney. Is there something that you have as far as instructions in the future and what happens on Tuesday?
No,
Because
the council will give
done.
us direction. I mean, how they want their agendas
But don't you have
handled.
rules about advertising and how long you can advertise and when things are placed on the agenda? Aren't there rules for that?
No.
There are no rules. For
The only rule is that public meetings must be advertised. There is no, and ordinances, certain resolutions, but an item like that doesn't have to be published.
Oh,
No.
then that answers my point of order. We have no rules. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for bringing it to our attention, really. Further agenda additions, deletions, adoptions. Ms. Turner, do you have further ones?
No, sir.
Yes, I would like to add an item, Mayor. Item 4C, it's a resolution on concerning restroom addition to River House, and you have a copy of it in front of you.
All right. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda as modified?
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes. We have a certificate to present. Mr. Kramer.
Well, this is a certificate of appreciation to Miss Lila Blakesley. She is the individual who is most responsible for these banners that you see around downtown. I thought it was very fitting that we give her this certificate of appreciation. I tell you what, I really enjoyed driving around and actually looking at these banners, and I actually make a point to drive down different streets every time I go through downtown to make sure that I see them all. But terribly creative idea. A really, really wonderful idea. And I think it really creates a lot of interest in our downtown. I'm really, really thankful that you did this, Lila. But come on down. But it's a recognition and appreciation for her idea of having banners made for the downtown area and then organizing the process and seeing it through. These banners are now hanging throughout the downtown area, adding to the beauty of our downtown. Would you like to say a few things?
Well, thank you so much, City Council. I am so honored, and it's wonderful to, be able to work with you all and get something done that had never been done before, and everybody is very excited about it, and I can't thank you enough for helping it move so smoothly. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we will go to public comment. We have two people that have asked for time. Mrs. Turner is the first, and Mr. Dagg is the second. And then after that, we'll go to general public comment. We're going to try to finish by 8:30 tonight, so these presentations will take some time, and they've already arranged for that time. But I would ask the rest of you to try to stick within our 3 minutes that's on the agenda, if you would. Mrs. Turner.
Good evening, Council. Pilar Turner, 1515 Indian Bay Drive. Tonight I will present to you with the realities of our electric utility. For the record, I'm a civil engineer with a master's degree in business administration, and over 20 years managing multi-million-dollar oil and gas construction projects. Over the past 6 years, I've studied our electric utility. Let's begin with our current budget. And for simplicity, I've rounded the numbers, which is difficult for an engineer to get out of that precise mode, but much easier for everyone to understand. The overall electric budget. The overall electric budget is roughly $100. The city finance manager has prepared this pie chart for us of our costs.
Take your time. We need the chart.
Yeah, we need the chart. Great. Clearly, the largest portion of our budget, fuel and purchase power. It accounts for 65% of the total. What is this? What does that mean? I guess I should have put on the other mic to go back and forth from here. But anyway, the 65% of our costs are the power contracts. We have 3 of those with FMPA, which we receive current power obligations, and the all requirements, which provides no power. We also have a contract with OUC. That'll work there.
Got lots of help.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hetty. So much on the side. Thank you. Does that work? Can you hear me? Yeah, that's working now. Thank you. The 3 active contracts with FMPA are for the life of the project, with the Stanton 2 contract currently at 2066, another 52 years. And it may be extended as the plant's been not utilized completely. The OUC contract expires in 2030. According to the PA consultant groups, who did an analysis of the fair market value of our contracts, this is what we're looking at. And yes, they are negative numbers. Our utility is encumbered with above-market power costs by as much as $51 to $80 million. This is the premium we, the ratepayers, will have to pay under these contracts. FMPA finances its projects using all ratepayers as collateral, not the financial asset. All 33,000 customers are liable for the debt. We have been making monthly payments for 30 years to FMPA. Yet, we have no equity and negative contract values. Well, what's left of our budget? There remains 35%, or roughly $35 million of expenses within the city's control. As reflected in the latest electric rate study, to achieve a 1% rate reduction in our electric bills, the city must reduce costs by $1 million. 1 to 1. 1% reduction, $1 million savings. Since the record high electric rates of 2009, you remember $160 kilowatt bills? When we were paying off FMPA's failed gas hedging ventures, the following cost-saving measures have been taken. We've reduced the power plant costs by 26%. We reduced overall operation expenses by 14%. Personnel has declined from 120 to 106. We decreased our renewal and replacement reserve by 50%. This is our annual maintenance reserve, which dropped from an average of $6 million to $3 million a year. This is not a prudent amount to sustain our system, and I think we are currently seeing that as we're going through repairs at the power plant. These savings are already incorporated into our rates. Having made these cuts, the options for significant further reductions are slim. Remember, $1 million is needed for every 1% decrease in rates. So let's take a look at our pie chart. We've had suggested areas of savings. In the pink section is our debt service. That accounts for about $7 million annually. If we are to sell this utility in 2 years, refinancing is a losing proposition. The refinancing costs and early penalty payments will negate any savings. If we don't sell, maybe at best we can realize up to $1 million, or maybe 1%. Call your attention to the dark blue section of the pie chart. This is our power plant. Power plant costs are roughly $4 million. Could closing the power plant provide a 4% rate reduction? The process is not simple nor immediate. A transmission study to upgrade the Emerson tie line and the purchase and installation of a new transformer will be required, estimating 2 to 2.5 years time for that. Our electric system will require upgrades for national energy regulatory compliance, and that's estimated about $2.5 million. If we only mothball the plant, not demolish it completely, we'll incur costs of about $500,000 to drain the lines and secure the site. We must still retain the cost of $1 million of property insurance and other maintenance costs. If these are not enough obstacles, the OUC contract must be renegotiated. It requires Vero to have the power plant available 24/7. Vero must purchase electric capacity to replace the power plant 58 megawatts guaranteed in the contract. The OUC price for this extra 58 million megawatts of capacity is $8.5 million a year. This option requires a $3 million investment, annual costs from $2 to $8.5 million, and still leaves the liability of the power plant structure. This does not include employee termination costs nor pension liabilities. It just doesn't make sense. Another option that's been looked at in the past is reducing the transfer to the city. This is our pale green section of the pie chart, which is $6 million. Well, let's say we reduce the transfer by $4 million. And what would that do? Double the city taxes. You'd reduce your rates 4%, but the city residents would pay dearly. Clearly, there's no significant rate reduction possible in the short term. In the interim, while Council continues to delay resolving the sale issues, we, the ratepayers, continue to pay an average of 32% higher rates. Our neighbors 50 yards away in FPL territory are paying 32% less. This graph shows FP&L at 0, and you can see that across the board, consistently, at any usage of kilowatts. Vero Beach is considerably higher. From 200 to 4,000 kilowatts, we are 30% or more higher than FPL. As residents, our monthly bills remind us of our high electric costs and the impact on our budgets. But think about our businesses, 1/2 of our revenue. I requested the power bills of our top electric customers for January. The average difference for these businesses, if served by FPL, is 47%. This is money directly from their bottom line. Look at the potential of annual savings. For the hospital, $683,000 a year. About $500,000 for Piper. The school board, $200,000, enough for several teachers. Will businesses locate to Vero with electric premiums 30 to 50% higher? And if our current businesses move out of Vero Beach electric territory, the Vero Beach taxpayers will have to pick up the business's share of taxes. Think about it. Note that the FPL commercial rates are lower for all categories. From the non-demand to the demand at 500 kW, and also for large demand customers. Once again, FPL on the bottom, Vero at the top with the red line. FPL rates for commercial non-demand are consistently lower than Vero Beach rates, regardless of usage. With this chart, you've seen the limited ability the city has to significantly lower your rates. Did anyone notice the 1% reduction in January? That's about all we have to look forward to. We are surrounded by FPL territory. The only way the city can get FPL rates is if we could operate our utility for a total of $3 million versus the $35 million of today's budget. Remember, $1 million of cost savings required for a 1% reduction. And FPL is 32% below us in residential. Clearly, that is impossible. Unless the city finds a way out of these contracts, there is not a viable option to ever deliver FPL rates. Follow the numbers. It's mathematically impossible. The FMPA contracts are not FPL's problem. They are ours, the city of Vero Beach. After 30 years, this is our opportunity to break free. With FPL rates, we will return over $20 million per year to our residences and our businesses. What an economic boom! In the past 6 years of studying this issue, the result is the same. The sale to FPL benefits ratepayers, Vero citizens, and city employees. Everyone wins. It secures the financial future of our city, allowing us to resolve the underfunded pensions. The voters have given us a clear mandate. Let's secure lower rates for today and the future. Let us not be handcuffed to FMPA for another 52 years. Demand our city council quit delaying. What have we accomplished in the last 2 weeks? How many more weeks? When will we have action? It is time to urge our negotiating team to move forward to bring the best deal back for the voters to decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Turner. Mr. Daigle, please.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, if I might indulge after Mr. Daigle's presentation, I have a letter to present to you from the county.
I would,
probably take 2 minutes.
That would be fine, except I would like to finish Mr. Daigle's subject.
Oh, no, that's what, no, let him.
Well, if there's any follow-up to him, it'll be brief, I think. I would like to finish his subject, then we'll come back to the electric. Mr. Zork. I have one.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. Ken Daigle, 1846 21st Avenue. I am the chairman of the High Speed Rail Commission, and they gave me permission to stand before you all tonight. And with me tonight is our vice chair, Mr. Don Crotel, and also Mr. Brian Hetty, which is one of our commissioners also. And they may like to have a couple of words after I'm finished, if you can indulge them, please. I'll go through a couple of things here that we've been working on, just to fill you in with some background. And first of all, I'd like to thank our Railroad Commission. All the members are working very hard. We all have a diverse background, and we're all looking out for the best interest of our city, and everyone is working truly hard. And thank you for putting the commission together. To my knowledge, I think the city of Vero Beach is the only city that has put a commission together like you all have done. First thing, I'd like to bring your attention to an email that I sent to Mr. O'Connor and Mr. Rusty Roberts. There were some questions that I asked, and Mr. Roberts responded to Mr. O'Connor. And this is about the safety quiet zones. And it reads like this: Jim, I spoke with our lead engineers and project managers of HNTB about your question related to the Advisory Commission question referencing using our engineers to take a lead on the quiet zone application and design. Here's the response back. There's many other responses on there. I'm just going to read this one. And if you don't have this, just let me know and I'll make sure that you get it. The message I'm getting from our project manager is, and this is Mr. Roberts responding, is that the window of joint cooperation for crossing work is closing fast. As much of our infrastructure related to crossing design work is already done, with only Pacific safety-related components left to be finalized in the upcoming diagnostics. Additional reliance also stems from our team's already stretched workload and potentially complicated invoicing. Bottom line there is we had asked if we could dovetail off using their engineers, and the answer is no in a very polite way. But I wanted to bring that to your attention, and also wanted to bring to your attention, I call it the window of opportunity is closing. Okay, so you see that. All right, this is another email that I sent to Mr. Clement. We had some legal questions that we wanted to address concerning, our rights as far as the community. And I'll just read the one line here. And this one's dated February 10th, 2014, and the other date was February 10, 2014, same day. Okay. It has become very apparent that some legal issues may need to be addressed concerning the suggestions of the High Speed Rail Commission may make to Vero Beach City Council. In other words, they wanted to know how to make suggestions to you in a legal format. All right, Mr. Clement was kind enough to send us a response, and I'm not going to read the whole response, but basically his office is really not set up to handle a lot of our questions concerning federal regulations because the railroads fall underneath them. And Mr. Clement, in this email that he sent to me, said it would take a tremendous amount of time, and back to it, they're just not set up to do it. That's not their area of expertise. He did recommend going back to the commission and talking to the commission about making a recommendation, or you guys can consider hiring legal counsel to advise us of our legal rights. Here's an email from Mr. Roberts on another issue. This one's dated March 10th. And Mr. Roberts is the Vice President of Corporate Development for Florida East Coast Industries. Here's some of the questions that we funneled to Mr. Roberts. When should the City of Vero Beach be ready to submit paperwork to All Aboard Florida to ensure that the quiet zone work can be included with the crossing safety work? Because they're going to be doing upgrades to all our crossings through Vero Beach. We have 8, and 2 are not under our jurisdictions. One's DOT and one is for the county. If you all elect to do the quiet zones, we'll have to get permissions from DOT and the county to do the quiet zone work at those crossings. We are still finalizing our construction schedule. However, we highly recommend that the city makes a decision regarding the implementation of quiet zones. We can be flexible on the timing of reimbursement to accommodate budget cycles. I've asked, basically, when does that window close? We really haven't got a sure answer. In other words, I wanted to know, what's my final date? What he says here is it's closing, is basically the gist that I got from him. Another question that came in from this is a question from the community, and he responded to this. Can we charge taxes to All Aboard Florida? Will the city earn tax money? And here's his answer. Rail corridor assets are not subject to local taxes, so we can't tax them. So that's some of the questions that we had asked him. There's more in here. If you guys didn't get that, please let me know. Here's another interesting thing that came in today from Kim Delaney. You've heard about the environmental study. Well, I thought this was interesting. Environmental Impact Study, EIS, process, summary and timing. Okay? In this email, they say it will be ready sometime in the spring. Now, when is that time? We're not sure. Sometime in spring. Now, when that package comes out from the group that's reviewing this, the public has 45 days that they can do their public input. I read through here, they mention West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, Stewart, Fort Pierce, when they're going to go through and do these public meetings. They don't mention us. So I want to do a follow-up with Kim Delaney and say, what about us, Indian River County and the city of Vero Beach? The point that I'm making here, time frames. They're coming through. They'll have this document that's already put into place from the feds, and now we can have input. Now, to have input into that document, we're going to have everything packaged as such. Our city has particular needs. The citizens want to know what their rights, what can be done, what can't be done. Can it be stopped? That's some of the questions that have been brought to our ears. So we're going to have to be ready to go to be included in the study. My thing is, I just don't want to be a bullet point hanging outside the study, so when it goes to the appropriate authorities, I want us to be included. Now, with that being said, as I'm going through this, hopefully tonight, after I'm finished, you guys might want to take, if you feel like it, some action where we can work with other cities and other counties, because there's other things that we can do jointly if we join forces. Kim Delaney went over that a few meetings ago. Also, another interesting piece of business, the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council sent a memorandum to our governor, Governor Rick Scott, and there was from Mike J. Busha, executive director of the group. In there, they asked about state funding for quiet zone improvements. Then they write up about it. Stations and stops in Martin, St. Lucie, and Indian River counties. Then they talked about relocation of the freight to the CSX rail corridor. There's been questions asked about that, and so far the folks at All Aboard doing that or moving the passenger service over that way, the answer's been no. And there's a couple other things that they ask about in there, but they're all outlined. That was to the governor. They are also the Treasure Coast Regional Group. They sent pretty much similar to what they put in here, but asking for more funding. They sent it to our Senate and House representatives, including Bill Posey. So it's along the same lines. And as this is rolling forward for backup material, I wanted to make sure you guys got that. You can read what they're trying to get funding for, where we can also be at the table, too, to get some funding and help if you choose to do the quiet zone, safety zone situation.
Appropriate.
By the way, this is right now.
Yeah, I think you planned that one.
Cue the train.
Okay, yes. Actually, we did a meeting downtown, and right in the middle of the presentation, as the folks were talking, that thing blasted on through. The place was vibrating. The noise was fairly loud. No one could talk, and everybody's looking around, hollering at one another. And it's interesting is that the vibrations, I went to one of the studies, it talks about vibration from trains. Because what may happen here along this corridor, I hope you know, they do have plans to put a track to the west of what we have that will be for the high-speed train. The freight line will stay in place, and if you've been following this, the freight folks that move the freight, they plan on adding more freight trains to that rail. So we're going to have increased freight. Also, with the high-speed rail, they may include other passenger service trains in the later future or near future. Again, they're not saying when. Now, as far as a stop here, so far the answer is no. No stop here in Vero. So basically, where this is going is people want to know, okay, we know it's going to impact us. How much is it going to impact us? Is it going to hurt us with our downtown area? And we have concerns on both sides of the river. And bear in mind as you're thinking through this, access. The ones of us that live on the west side of the track, and there's a whole bunch of us, by the way, on the west side. It's not necessarily bad, but we're on the west side. How are we going to get to the hospital? When that thing goes through, and if you need an ambulance, well, you have to wait. And our family, we had a situation like that where the ambulance got held up, and it wasn't the driver's fault, but it took quite a bit of time to get to our house. I'm in the construction industry. If you have a head injury or a heart attack, you have to get to the hospital quickly. So just bear that in mind. We need access. Okay. Next thing, at our last Rail Commission meeting, we came up with some suggestions, and the group was agreeable to me to bring them forward to you all for your consideration. And I'm just going to read them because we had our group meeting and had the vote, and they agreed. All right, it's dated March 11, 2014, and subject is High-Speed Rail Commission recommendations. I know you all have this, but I'm really reading this for the public because we've had a lot of questions on this, and I think you get copied of all the emails that we get coming in, and I send them to you all. The High-Speed Rail Commission has held numerous public meetings, received public comment, questioned all aboard Florida representatives about their planned project, and investigated the legal responsibilities of various involved parties. Some of our interim findings are outlined below. Now, everyone that I have invited to our meeting, including Rusty Roberts from All Aboard Florida, Kim Delaney, and others, have been very kind to come here and share their thoughts with us. Now, we may not like their answers, but when they come here, they do give us answers, and Rusty's gathered through the process here. If I don't quite get the answer then, I'll just keep asking until I get some kind of answer, even if you tell me no, go away. But anyway, they have answered, our questions. Number one, the planned project will impact the city in three basic ways. Doubling of train speed from under 50 to as high as 110, doubling the number of tracks from 1 to 2, and tripling the frequency of train traffic from 18 freight trains daily to 50 combined freight and passenger trains daily. That's a lot, plus more down in the future. Those changes in use of the train right-of-way will cause considerable increase in noise, as each train is required to sound loud horns at least 3 times for each road crossing. The creation of quiet zones to mitigate this noise is legally the responsibility of the city. And that's what we were told. If you want to do a quiet zone, That's on your back. Unless later on down the road I'll make some suggestions on how maybe we can get the state and the federal people to help us. Significant disruption to vehicle traffic within the city may occur with the increases in train traffic. This can only be avoided by elevating the tracks. All Aboard Florida has stated that this is not possible. They explained why. Public safety may be compromised with the increased train velocity. Any safety measures such as fencing or reduced train speed required by the federal government will be the responsibility of All Aboard Florida. Fencing. People are very concerned about that. There are going to be sections along this line that All Aboard Florida is going to be required to put up a fence. My question is, what type of fence? People now have concerns. Is this going to look like a tunnel? Is it chain link? What is it? Come to find out, when you go through some of the studies, we can have our say-so on what they need to do with fencing, but it all has to be done legally. We do have some rights, and that's what we have to find out. The following actions by the City Council are recommended at this time. The city should prepare staff to comment on any proposed environmental impact statement, referred to as the EIS, that is published by the federal government. Any comments should be coordinated with the other urban communities that will be impacted by this project. The Treasure Coast Regional Planning Group, they got the message. It's going to impact us. Not only us, I'm saying us, I mean other cities and other counties. The city should investigate the various alternatives of creation of quiet zones and develop a comprehensive cost estimate to accomplish this. A specific cost estimate is necessary before any application for financial assistance can be filed with the state and federal governments. The estimate could be developed by staff or a consultant. A consultant estimate to do this, we got a cost from our city manager of around $20, I wish it was $20,000 to develop this. Once a cost estimate is complete, the city should apply to the state of Florida and the federal government for financial assistance to install quiet zones. We understand that 50% matching grants may be available. These are called Tiger grants. Now, I think one of the cities to the south of us did put in for a Tiger grant already, but we've lost that time. That window of opportunity has closed for us for the application process on that part of it. At the same time, the city should encourage our elected state representatives to change state statutes to require that All Aboard Florida bear the cost of quiet zones in urban areas where the trains will not be stopping. A separate letter of encouraging to Senator Negron to pursue funding on the city's behalf for quiet zones and other related measures should be sent. Senator Negron at this time is trying to get some help for all the cities that are being affected by this. So I would hope that you would consider drafting up some type of letter on behalf of the city of Vero Beach and just encouraging him to keep pushing for this, because we are definitely going to need some help with some funding. Number 5. The city may want to consider hiring counsel to address their rights as local residents, business owners, and property owners being affected by the All Aboard Florida project, which falls under federal guidelines. This could prove valuable to the city to make a case when commenting on the EIS draft. That's really where we can have some say-so. In my research and research of others, when they put this package together, they did make a difference. There were some changes because there's one gentleman that has a lot of experience because he chaired a particular committee up north where they were actually able to make some changes, some good solid changes. But if we don't have our stuff put together in a timely fashion, they're not going to take a look at us. You know, everybody can come in as far as the public input. Most of you up there, you're politicians, you understand how these studies work. They have the public so-called workshops. They take the input. That's nice. But the study still moves forward pretty much with what they had on the table. That's why with our materials, and if you choose to do so, to hire legal counsel, I want to be included in the study, even if we have to work with the Treasure Coast Regional Group, however you folks decide to do it. I want to be included in the study with our concerns because our community definitely has some serious concerns. Number 6, evaluate closing, they call it the flyover crossing between 26th Street and 23rd Street. I think you all know where that's located, and they call it the flyover. You know what I'm talking about, right? The High-Speed Rail Commission hopes that you will consider these recommendations and give the Commission direction on the next steps that you would like us to take. So the ball's kind of in your court, and I would ask if you would consider letting the Vice Chair have a few words, and I know Mr. Hetty would like to address you.
Yes, I think that's appropriate. Time is the essence of this, and this is a serious problem, and I, for one, have had a chance to study some of the marketing that they've done and so on. Don't have copies of it, and I think the train's coming. I would like to hear from your other 2 members, and then I have some ideas as far as direction, because I believe you're going to have a meeting on the 26th, and I would like to give you direction to move forward with that. But Don?
Yeah, I'd like to add to Ken's comments about the involvement by other communities. We are not alone in this. We are probably going to be impacted a little bit less, in fact, than Stewart and St. Lucie counties. We don't have a waterway being crossed. We represent less than 9% of the crossings that exist in the 3 counties that are not going to have train stations established and stops. We should not be speaking alone. I think a voice from here will have minimal impact. So it's important. I was very pleased to see that the Regional Planning Council has already taken some action and having a meeting next week to discuss further actions that they can take. They have resources that we partially support, and we should make sure that those resources are spent in the best way to go in the direction we're going. They have advocated 100% funding for quiet zones, a combination of Tiger grants from the federal government and state money from the Dred Scott, the Governor Scott fund to support this project. Long term, we have a behind the scenes that Ken didn't mention. There's a movement to bring Amtrak down through this on the Shoreline Corridor to have stops in Melbourne and Vero Beach and Fort Pierce and Stewart and what have you. And before that is gone, they're advocating accelerating that process. So as we go forward with this, the likely outcomes, from my perspective, the likely outcomes that we're going to have is, and what we should be working for is as follows. They're not going to change the route. We're not going to be able to get that accomplished, I don't think. And I think what we can do is just get the mitigations that they may move the CSX freight inland, and that's a possibility. I don't think that necessarily is going to happen, but it's a possibility. They won't elevate the track. That's just not going to happen. I think it's very likely that we will be able to get full funding for quiet zones because of the strength of the arguments coming from the other 2 counties. And if we all work together and get the Treasure Coast Planning Agency, St. Lucie County, and Martin County, and maybe our own county, to participate in supporting this, it would go a long way to mitigating our cost. I think quiet zones are essential. I don't think we should be spending any money because we are getting absolutely no benefit whatsoever out of this change, and we should not be spending any money to do that. I think we will be able to get a reduced speed through the town. In many places where there are railroad crossings, the federal government's railroad authority does require a reduction in speed for safety purposes. And I think that argument we can make, and that'll be made by both St. Lucie and by Stewart. And it probably will be successful. The other thing that Ken didn't mention, which I think is important, is increased liability. If we put in for quiet zones, it becomes our responsibility, and we increase our liability if there's an accident. Part of the movement, and also because the crossing gates will be more sophisticated and we as a city have a responsibility for annual maintenance of those gates, if we have a more sophisticated, it will increase our costs going forward for those costs. Part of the movement that the regional planning agent has already identified is to change the law so that we would not have, so our liability would not be increased. The state would take on our liability, and the cost for maintaining the crossings would be shifted over to the operator of the train. That's something that they're working on. I think we need to support that heavily because it will affect our costs going forward. Thank you very much.
Mr. Hetty, I believe you're part of this commission. I would be interested in your comments, please, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Actually, I asked to be on the agenda at the same time Ken did to give the minority report. Ken, I think, should be commended for doing a very good job with respect to his handling of the committee. He took a page out of Pilar's book, and he took a page out of Jay's book, and with respect to his respect for the citizens that come forward on the issue, he and I disagree, but certainly on his handling, he should be commended. During the deliberations at the Railroad Commission, we were told by two of the members, the lawyer from Indian River Shores and the head of the Chamber of Commerce, we were told that we only have two choices, and those two choices apparently were given to those individuals by the city council. Now, I don't know what, yeah, exactly, because I don't know what those choices are, and I've asked what those choices are. If Penny Chandler and the lawyer from Indian River Shores have two choices that we're eventually going to vote on, I wish I knew what they were. Before I go too far, the train went by here, and Ken continued to speak. I mean, I could hear the horns, but the room wasn't vibrating, and I think that when you exaggerate the problem, I think you lose it. And the room wasn't vibrating, and he continued with his thing. And that doesn't mean that the noise isn't a problem, but I just want to point that out. One of the things that I got involved with this was because I wanted to ask some questions, and I figured if I was a member of the commission, I'd be able to ask questions, and I did. And Ken and I disagree. He says that they have provided answers. Oh my gosh, no. They've provided answers to little questions, meaningful questions. They have not provided answers. Mr. Roberts has, on occasion, made a front page article in 32963. Mr. Roberts has provided answers that were not truthful. And he's continued to do that. And Mr. Roberts, by the way, is formerly the legislative assistant to the congressman who heads up the congressional committee that doles out real railroad money. So you know the connection. And the attorney from Indian River Shores who volunteered to be on the City of Vero Beach committee, turns out that he knows Mr. Roberts and the congressman because he was a lobbyist in Washington before he came to Indian River Shores to be a member of our committee. Anyway, the comments about EIS, the Environmental Impact Study, waiting, I don't think could be further from the truth that if we want to have an impact on the Environmental Impact Study, what we need to do, and there was a citizen that has given a tremendous presentation here at the public podium, and we need to get our ducks in a row, and we need to be giving input to the committee, to the federal regulators that are putting together the environmental impact study. They should know what our concerns are now, because as Ken Daig has pointed out, once these things are written, they're pretty well, I mean, they'll give a little bit of time, 45 days, for some public input, but public input really doesn't have a whole lot of input because the study is already done. So the time is now, not later, to do that. With respect to the quiet zones, Penny Chandler gave a couple of examples, said there were models. One of them was Fort Collins, and I read the report from Fort Collins. Penny said she didn't read it. I read the report from Fort Collins, and the speed limit going into the town is 10 miles an hour. And on the other end of the town, the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. So you start out entering the town at 10 miles an hour, you leave the town at a maximum of 45, so the average in the town is like 35 miles an hour. This is nowhere comparable to what they're presenting to be done in Vero Beach, and I've been told that I'm inaccurate on that. Well, if you come in at 10, you leave at 45, I don't know how that compares. By the way, the trains are not designed yet. That's one of the questions I asked. You know, who's building these trains? And well, actually, they're not designed yet. And one of the recommendations is to hire some legal counsel. I couldn't say more emphatically no to spending more tax dollars on legal counsel. And as far as taxes, and we can't tax, I'm not real sure of that, and I'd like to see the legal precedent on that. 45 days to give input. Once the report is out, 45 days is probably barely enough time to read the report, let alone put together some of our concerns about what the report might say. Kim from the Regional Planning Council, it should not go unnoticed that she's in favor now of this, and the Treasure Coast Regional Panel, they've asked for state funding, they've asked for federal funding. They're looking to give this private entity, they're looking to give us, give our tax dollars. So the Regional Planning Council is pretty much on board with having this done, giving our tax dollars to this private entity. Oh, and by the way, the private entity, remember, I'm sure some of you, I know that I was impacted, and I think that there's a whole lot of people in this country that were impacted in 2008, and the stock market kind of went crashing down, and we had lots of problems. And one of the problems was created by Fannie Mae. Remember that? Well, you know the guy who headed up that government organization? Any idea where he left to go to? The company, the parent company of the train. So he left Washington, right, to be the CEO of the parent company that does the train. And exaggerating problems, I think, does you more harm than good. One of the things you need to be on a hospital. You know, I grew up in upstate New York, and I never once ever lived closer than 35, 40 minutes from a hospital. I couldn't have made it in 5 minutes if I had a helicopter in my backyard, which I didn't. And it reminds me of a town in Alaska, Whittier. Whittier shares the main road to the town is shared with the railroad, and it's actually a tunnel. And the tunnel, the railroad goes through, and so do cars. And when the railroad goes through, they block the cars off, and when the cars are in there, they block the railroad off because it only fits either cars. Actually, it's cars one way or the other way, and the train. So when the tunnel is blocked off, it's at least 3 hours before you even get a car through the tunnel. So there's certainly lots of places where hospitals are a lot further than 5 minutes. Legal liability, the question about it, if we take part in the quiet zones, if we take part in...
I don't want to limit you in any way, but it's 7 o'clock, so, you know.
Okay. Legal liability, if we take part in that in any way, if we take part in the quiet zones, we are going to have legal liability. We'll be one of the named party. It'll be a shotgun approach when when the lawsuits come down, and we will be one of the named parties. Ken had mentioned about the height of the railroad and said that that couldn't be done. Actually, Penny Chandler said that the city council wouldn't allow the elevated trains because of your height limitations. Now, I've never heard that discussed at city council, but heck, if they wanted to put an elevated train, look like a monorail, Germany does that, by the way. If they wanted to put an elevated train, that would solve all the problems, wouldn't it? And I don't remember the city council ever turning that down. So, but that was the answer, one of the answers on the height restrictions. And if we want to be included in the EIS study, we do not need to wait. We should not wait. We can't wait until after it comes out. We need to be defining those things that are concerns, the historical buildings, the speed, the vibration, the noise, whatever it is that our concerns are. We need to be sending that to the federal regulators that are in charge of putting together the environmental impact study. We should not wait. And our vice chairman says we're not alone in this. No, we're not alone. But if you look up and down the coast, what most of the other political subdivisions have decided to do is ask for state and federal help, as if there's a magical money tree in Tallahassee or in Washington that they pluck dollars and will send it back. So he may be happy to see the Regional Planning Council involved. I'm not so happy because what they've advocated is state and federal funding of this. The vice chair thinks that reduced speeds are possible. Well, then that should be part of what we're telling the environmental impact study now. That's what we should be telling the people putting together the study, that the speeds, if that's the problem, then that's what we need to be telling. But we need to be telling them that now, and I think that would increase the likelihood that there might be some resolution to the concerns about the speed. And the cost of maintenance, I've seen documents that have shown cost of $10,000 per intersection. So if we really want to increase the cost for the taxpayers when we're reducing the income level down in the city by the selling of the electric, somehow I think that if you reduce the income, you shouldn't be doing things that are going to increase the expenses, and that's basically what we would be doing. Thank you.
I'm just going to do real quick so you guys have it. Excuse me, Ken.
Before you go with that, I end up thoroughly confused.
Oh, I was going to tell you where something was.
No, wait a second. Wait a second. Just this comment. Okay. The gentleman that Mr. Henny properly referred to, I believe it was from Connecticut or Rhode Island, one of those places.
Yes.
And he made the statement, which Mr. Henny made and you made too, and Don made also, that the critical thing on this is to be involved in the environmental study.
Yes.
And I have a question for you or for Jim or for whomever. How do we do that?
This is my opinion. In talking to Kim Delaney and other cities, we had a meeting, and part of the information I sent out to the Railroad Commission as well as the City Council was one of those meetings with city managers and county administrators in the area to talk to the Regional Planning Council about this issue. As was pointed out, we are going to be impacted, but the fact of the matter is, take Stewart as an example, is going to be more greatly impacted from us. I think our only real shot at this EIS is to work through the Regional Planning Council. They are going to get the first document, they're going to get the draft, they're going to send it to all of the cities, and they're going to send it to any interested party that has shown an interest in that. But the group that has the only staff that has enough people and enough hours in the day to read a document such as this is going to be the Regional Planning Council. We will pick out small items that affect us, but in essence, as was noted before, if that window of opportunity is only 45 days, but Kim Delaney does think that window of opportunity can be expanded. In EIS studies in other areas, there has been a request, not from just one local government, but from a region such as ours, and they do and they can have and they have the authority to expand that 45-day window to a longer period if in fact we can't do it. And in my opinion, that's going to be that seems to be the only group right now that represents the area and the region.
Mr. Day.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, if I may just clarify. I think there's quite a bit of confusion with the EIS. The EIS is a document that's prepared by a consulting firm that is hired by the railroad. Then the EIS is submitted to a regulatory body. So the issue is, let's get to the regulatory body before the EIS gets there. We cannot participate in the environmental statement. That is done solely by the owner of the project proposing it. However, we can get our concerns summarized and submitted to the regulators.
How do we do that?
We write a letter.
We do.
Mr. Day?
We do exactly what Councilmember Turner has just said. We put our ducks in a row right now, and we write a letter to the regulatory authority and say, hey, the environmental impact study that you're looking to approve, here's some of the questions, here's some of the concerns, here's some of the problems that we face in Vero Beach. And please, federal regulators, include our concerns in the environmental impact study, but it needs to be done now. If we wait to do what Mr. O'Connor says is the equivalent of being an ostrich and stick our head in the sand and totally ignore until somebody runs us over.
Mr. Ed, I think that was probably a little too harsh. Mr. Digg, I cut you off twice, so I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, that's okay. For the record, Ken Digg, 1846 21st Avenue, High Speed Rail Commission. Just wanted to point out there was a little bit of talk on the liability for quiet zones, and I made reference to an email that came in today from Kim Delaney. Hopefully you folks got that, because it says here, this remains a point of continuing discussion, and we've discussed this with several municipal attorneys who are researching the matter. FRA has 2 attorneys that deal in this area. Now, what they did is they listed them in your research, when you get ready to move on something, to put together a document. If you choose to hook up with the other counties and cities to get it up there ahead of time, that is really up to you all. I will tell you what I've been hearing. We've had a number of meetings, and you guys know I move throughout the community quite a bit. This is what's coming up. People want to know their rights, and they want to know what can be done, and when will they know their rights? How do they have input? And we did have a meeting with a number of what I call stakeholders, business owners, property owners. They're concerned about their businesses downtown, how this is going to impact them. So the message that we got, or I got loud and clear, is they want to see some results. They want to see some action. Then we have the residents. They're concerned. They're worried. You all know where the tracks are located. We have historical buildings along the tracks. We have a playground there. We have a high school down the way a little bit. Also, a pilot pointed this out to me, and I call it the displacement of air. He has a fancy term for it. He said, you do know with that thing moving at 110 miles through your city, you're going to have some other problems associated with that. So I'm going to give him a call and there is paperwork on file that talks about, I call it air displacement, but there's another technical term for it. Back to you folks considering taking some action. It's really up to you all now what you do. We've kind of got it to this point. You need to give us direction. I wanted to stand here before you and give you a good view of what's been happening, not taking sides. Mr. Hetty does bring some interesting perspectives to the table. And I know you'll address those things in your mind, but mainly what I want to tell you folks is people want some results. They're concerned with the impact, and I hear this over and over. I heard it a number of times today. What are our rights? And we want to be advised legally. That's what the community wants.
Hon, I'd like to take 1 minute from you, and then we need to move on. It's 7:08.
I just wanted to point out environmental impact statements are complicated. They follow very specific guidelines. They're not anecdotal. You can't just say, like it. It has to have some specific, measurable, negative impact that you can address. And I'll give you an example. The gentleman who worked on this in Massachusetts pointed out that the train was going to be going through. It was an abandoned track, but they're reestablishing trains going through. And there was an optical manufacturer who made contact lenses with a machine that could not stand any vibrations. And the railroad was required to do special vibration work, anti-vibration work with the train going through it at that point. They had invested a lot of money in order to protect that business. So environmental impact statement has to have specific impacts that you can identify as having harmed a business or reduced a value of something. So it's very difficult to do. There are a number of environmental impact statements that have been done on proposed railroad corridors all over the country. They run hundreds of pages. I've read a couple of them. And they're a good source of potential kinds of things we should be thinking about here. I really do think we should spend some time, somebody with some experience at looking at this kind of stuff and identifying and being very familiar with Vero Beach can be helpful working with the regional planning agency and with the other cities to do that. I think it's important to be thinking about it.
I'd like to hear what Mr. Kramer thinks about this.
And just one last comment, Mr. Mayor. I think that your council member Turner has pointed out to you, and if you're going to take any action, the action that this council needs to take is to, and if you want to throw it back at the Rail Commission, that's fine, but we need to have our concerns outlined, identified, and sent to the Federal Regulatory Authority. We need to stop playing silly games about asking for magical money from someplace else, and we need to let the regulators know, here's what it's going to do to our city, and we need to do that sooner, not later.
Thanks for the comment. Mr. Kramer, please.
Just real quickly, I mean, I agree with Brian, and you know, we've got to get our message in front of the regulatory, but realistically, there's safety in numbers, and I know there's a lot of other communities out there that are worried about this. I'd like to see our Railroad Commission actually go out and seek and get contact with all these other groups so that we can get a mission statement and get it in front of those regulatory groups, but have a whole list of all the concerned communities, cities, municipalities, counties. There's safety in numbers and there's strength in numbers, and I'd like to see that happen.
Mr. Fletcher.
I attended the MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting. Mr. Kramer was there also. And this same gentleman from Massachusetts, I believe it was, gave a short speech on what he had done. The MPO at that time had asked us if our Rail Commission had been in touch with the MPO, and the answer that I got from them was, no, you have not. I would like to suggest that you get in touch with the MPO meeting people. I think Ms. Adams of Fellsmere is president, or just call over there and find out who on staff would probably be a better thing yet. Who on staff would be best as another.
Phil's coming next meeting.
Phil Madison, yes. Is that who it is?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Ms. Graves.
The Treasure Coast Regional League of Cities is also obviously addressing this issue. I have to be down in Fort Pierce tomorrow to meet with them. They've already worked on drafting some letters that were supposed to be addressed this legislative season. So I'll ask them again tomorrow and say, what can we do as far as maybe generating questions for the EIS as we go forward.
Mrs. Turner.
I think I'd made my comments. I think we need to get ahead of the regulatory. Once the EIS is submitted, they're very reluctant to go back and revise drafts. I think we need to get our concerns forward. If we want to do it as a group, let's set a target that within 2 weeks that we will have some document together, listing our concerns and just say, hey, as Regulatory Commission, as you're reviewing this EIS, please note that these are issues for our community. Be sure that they're addressed.
Let me try this, and we can take public comment after, although in a sense we may not need it. I don't know. But it would seem to me, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, Mr. Hetty, that what the direction you're getting from City Council is, A, to reach out to other units or other governments to get strength, and B, jump on the EIS concerns, as the case may be. Does that fairly summarize the direction?
Makes sense.
Give us a list of what your concerns are, that we can delineate them, and then put them on a letter to the agencies, appropriate agencies.
And I don't think there's any hesitation. You've got one here, but I think it's premature. I don't think there's any hesitation of the City Council sending documents or doing whatever you want over my signature or the City Council's signature to go forward. But I don't think you've brought us to the step we need to be taken. I would encourage you to do that on the 26th and bring it back to us on April 1st or 2nd, whatever the next meeting is.
And I go to the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. In fact, the 21st, this coming Friday, will be another meeting. They are quite in favor of this. They're happy as clams. They don't care about any River County or St. Lucie County. To them, it's a wonderful opportunity. So if we're going to do something, we're going to have to do it on our own, local.
Mr. Dade, can you live with that direction? Or is there other public comment on this subject? Yes, Mr. Sork, by all means.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Thamesworth County Commission District 3, and I hadn't planned on speaking on this, but an action that was taken by the commission this morning to instruct our Public Works Director to reach out to our pool of consultants on contract retainer that we can reach out to see if we have one possibly through Kemley Horn or another national firm that has a rail consultant that does EIS comments that we can bring on board quickly to be ahead of the game before the report's closed. And the concept was if we can reach out to them, I think Chris is going to start on that tomorrow, to see who we might have that we don't have to go through a RFP on to hire them, that we already have them under retainer, that we can then, through the umbrella of the MPO, and I agree with the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council to the extent that I don't always trust them. They're the same people that brought us 750. I would rather see the county and the cities, Sebastian, City of Vero, anybody else that's affected within our county, is we look out what's for our best interest for our residents, for the municipalities in the county. I share a number of the crossings. On one side of the crossings, mine, the other side is Commissioner Solari, but all the city crossings, half of the crossing falls in my district, so I do have a special concern of how the city is addressed. But I think hopefully within the next 2 days we'll know who do we have that we can bring on very quickly that can work with the commission, the MPO, and try to work out the best deal that's best for us. Because the Regional Planning Council, if they're trying to solve it for everybody, they got to find a widget that fits for everybody, and our widget may not work what Fort Pierce wants or what Martin wants. We need to look at what's best for us particularly, and that's my comment on the Regional Planning Council.
Well, while you're up there, if it's permissible by the public, we can move on to your comment that you wanted to give earlier.
Okay.
That'll make you stand up twice.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much. Again, Thamesworth County Commission District 3. The first is a one-paragraph letter I'll read from the County Attorney Dylan Reingold. It says, "Dear Council members, as you're aware, the issue of the sale of the Vero Beach Electric Utility by the City of Vero Beach to Florida Power & Light is an important issue not only to the City of Vero Beach, but Indian River County and the customers in the unincorporated area of Indian River County as well. Thus, the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners has adopted the enclosed resolution reiterating its continued support for the sale. The board also wishes to offer best wishes and good support to Mayor Wenger on his upcoming meeting on April 2nd. And I'm only going to read the top portion of the resolution, then I'll give a copy to the clerk, and then she can maybe scan it, send it out to you guys in your emails tomorrow. But Resolution 2014-026, a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, reiterating its support of the sale of the City of Vero Beach Electric Utility by the City of Vero Beach to Florida Power & Light and Company, directing copies of this resolution to be provided to the appropriate parties, and it lists the parties below that. But I'll give a copy of this to Tammy. It's a certified copy from the clerk's office that's hot off the press as of 5 today. So,
well, thank you for coming in. And the city and the county, the cities, the 5 cities and the counties working together is so important. Thank you for coming.
Right. Thank you.
We'll go to about 7:30, then we'll take a break. I'll take further comments on the electric if that's where you want to go. I got you're first, Dan.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of staff. Dan Stump, 615 Camellia Lane, speaking on behalf of the Vero Beach Chamber of Commerce this evening and in favor of the sale of Vero Electric. About 2 months ago, the council was very gracious in allowing the Vero Beach Chamber of Commerce to come here and make a presentation on our upstarting venture. We told you at that time that we had a goal at the end of March to have 100 members. We are 2/3 of the way accomplishing that goal, and we expect to put on a full court press this month and finish up and make our membership goal. Also, we had a town hall meeting on March 5th, the night after the city council met and tabled the resolution or the offer by FP&L to loan the city $26 million in interest-free loan, and that was referred now to the Joint Committee, the Utility and Finance Commission, along with the hope and intent of coming up with some lower rates in the short term. And we discussed that at our town hall meeting on March 5th. And I was very adamant about making sure that the people who attended and who were invited to attend that town hall meeting were representatives on both sides of the issue. We know who the individuals out in the community, the activists who are against the sale, always have been. We invited them. We made every attempt to make sure that they could come and appear. For whatever reason they have, and I'll give them the benefit of their doubt that they had good reasons not to attend, but they did not show up. However, we had a lot of attendees in the audience, members of the county government, members of the government of Indian River Shores, from Vero Beach City Hall, individual members, residents of the city of Vero Beach, and out county residents. We discussed the acceptance by FP&L of the offer presented to them by FMPA of the offer they'll take $52 million to release the city of Vero Beach from their all requirements project. And in particular, the method by FP&L that they would give the city of Vero Beach an interest-free loan of $26 million to be repaid in any manner that the city of Vero Beach chose over a 3-4-year period. And I can tell you that the opinion of that town hall meeting was unanimous in favor of the city of Vero Beach accepting that interest-free loan as presented and as it was presented to the city council. And also I just want to emphasize that topic was not recharacterized as a surcharge as it has been presented to the city council and as it has been discussed by some of the members of the press, so-called members of the press, the bloggers, trying to recharacterize it from something that what it is a true loan, trying to recharacterize it as a surcharge, and that was rejected. And I hope the city council, when this is brought back to you for final consideration, will also reject it as a surcharge and agree to the acceptance. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Who's first to be you two? Mr. Wilson? Mr. Wilson, 7:30, we're going to take a break, so.
I think that would be a good idea. My name is Charles Wilson, P.O. Box 651114, Vero Beach, Florida. Appreciate your answering my question earlier. I have two questions, and frankly, the question that you answered earlier, first let me say what I'm grateful for, okay? Mr. Mayor, I'm very grateful. I'm grateful to you for being a gentleman. I'm grateful for you for what you have to go through to keep order. I am grateful to you that at least you understand that the community cannot survive going forward spending $2 million a month for nothing. And so keeping an open mind, I'm very grateful for. And even when we disagree, I think moving forward there will be an opportunity where we can work together for the better benefit of the citizens of this town, which is our responsibility. So I want to be very careful because I want to do this respectfully and I want to do this non-belligerently. But the question I asked before about the changes in the agenda, the answer that you gave me is absolutely, positively inaccurate. So the first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to call upon Ms. Vach, who supported what you said, and said that it was FP&L, it was Amy Brunges who asked to remove that. That is simply not true. So I would like to ask the city clerk to read into the record the email that she received from Ms. Brunges.
Mrs. Vach, you may either do that or not do that as you see fit. We're not here.
I have it.
Well, that's fine. So put it in the paper.
So
Mr.
perhaps
Wilson, put it in the paper. But part of my job in running a meeting is I value the staff and I do what I think is right for staff. So I won't force her to answer. I'm sorry.
I don't think Ms. Vach did this on her own. So she was either ordered to do this by somebody, and the fact is that what you just told all the people in this audience and all the people watching that television is absolutely false.
No, what I said was I did not know why it wasn't on the agenda, is what I said, and that's true. What I did,
I think if she reads that email, you will find that is not true.
What I did say is that I didn't address the agenda, but what I did say, and I'll make that clear to you, is I did not think it was useful in light of the letters that have gone back and forth, 4 letters that have gone back and forth between FMPA and Florida Power and Light, which seem to be adversarial, that we go this route, that what was necessary before we considered further steps is to do what Florida Power and Light asked and what FMPA asked, and carry forward with talking to them.
With all due respect, Mr. Mayor, with all due respect.
That's what it says.
With all due respect.
It does not say to keep it off the agenda, but the intent of it is. So, again, move on.
Sir, the answer is that what you just said is very different than what you said before. And I believe that you probably have that email, and I don't blame you for not wanting to read it because basically what it says is she is writing to you that says, I understand that Mr. Winger has removed this from the agenda.
I have not. It's not true.
Which is much different than...
Go ahead. Mr. Kramer has the floor.
The agenda comes out on Wednesday. You have 2 people that wanted this on the agenda. Did either of you 2 question Ms. Falk why it wasn't on the agenda? You have the ability to put it on the agenda the day of the meeting.
Mr.
And
Kramer,
the backup was already there because it was on the previous
Mr.
agenda.
Kramer, my point is this. You have a part of your agenda. Your agenda says additions and corrections to the agenda, at which point you may withdraw something after conversation amongst yourselves.
And they can put it right back on.
And you may withdraw it.
They can put it right back on.
Mr. Kramer, there is a procedure for this. And what I'm saying to you is that the mayor is just another councilman who runs the meeting. And I doubt that any other individual councilman has the authority to go to Tammy Vach and tell her to remove something that she doesn't want to talk about.
But they also have the authority to put it on there. They didn't do that either.
No, but I certainly requested that at this meeting with agenda additions and deletions.
When the agenda came out Wednesday, did you go talk to Tammy about it?
No, but I did not have the minutes of the meeting, Mr. Kramer, at that time either. When I had the minutes,
Wilson,
and it was very clear in the minutes that it was a motion.
You put it on the beginning of the meeting.
Peace, Mr. The point here is that I would like to get this sale done, and we have 2 parties, namely FMPA and Florida Power and Light, that seemingly are not coming together. If we can do that, Mr. O'Connor and Mr. Comet and myself, we are going to do that. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
The point here is twofold. Number one is there is a procedure, and I believe, sir, with all due respect, you have overstepped your bounds.
Hand me the email if you have one.
I don't have it with me.
I don't know of an email. I'm sorry.
There is one. I just don't have it with me.
And does it say, is it a request from Amy Brunges to remove that information, to remove that from the...
I don't
This is
have
going
it
to be
in
the
front of
next
me.
conspiracy, you know that.
Okay.
Well, Ms. Brunges
That's what
is
he's
here.
working
She
on.
can speak to it.
Well, and perhaps if
I
you'd like to,
have not
she can speak
seen
to it.
any memo.
My next question
I haven't seen
now.
any memo from Mrs. Brunges. I'm sorry.
And
I have gotten none.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem. So you are all going to go up there and you're going to talk to FMPA. Who's going to that meeting?
I told you.
Who else? Who's going to the meeting with FMPA?
Additionally, I've asked Mr. Christopher to go with me.
George Christopher. How did George Christopher, the chairman of the Indian River Neighborhood Association, get asked to go with you to a private meeting to negotiate with FMPA?
I will ask him not to go if you like, but he's my legal advisor.
He's going as your legal advisor. You're taking things off the agenda, and then you're asking George Christopher, the biggest negative no-seller ever, to go and negotiate with FMPA. Are you kidding?
George, you're uninvited. Now go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
The point is you did secretly invite him.
No.
You took it off the agenda, and you secretly invited a private citizen who has no business being there to go with you. And you're trying to tell me that y'all aren't trying to kill this sale? How dare you?
Mrs. Brunges.
Is that okay? Yeah. Good evening. Amy Brunges, External Affairs Manager, Florida Power and Light. I was not intending to address you tonight, but I do feel, since my name has been spoken a few times, that maybe I should clarify this situation. And this is not our intention to see all this emotion. We just want to move forward with bringing these electric rates. It is not, Mr. Kramer. It is not. No one is. No, that's not true.
At least give her some courtesy, Mr. Kramer,
she
for the
addressed
public.
Me first. I did not.
Well, you were
respond
smirking
back.
at me and shaking your head back and forth.
Can
we
please?
Anyways, let me just read my email. That's why
you guys are acting like
Say, I'm
children,
interested.
all of you.
Thank you. Yeah. Let me just, the only reason I came up here was just to clarify, because in the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Winger said he had no knowledge of how it was removed from the agenda, and Tammy was asked, since she does the agenda, and she said she got an email from me. So that is true, that she did get an email from me, and I would like to just read it into the record so that everyone knows exactly what it said. And it's dated on March 10th, 2014 at 12:31 p.m. It's written to Tammy, and Mr. O'Connor is copied. And it says, Tammy, I met with Mayor Winger on Friday, and he indicated that the City Council would not be taking up the issue of the $52 million FMPA payment on March 18th, but instead, he wanted to wait until after his meeting with FMPA on April 2nd. As you know, I asked the City Council on March 4th to assist FPL in scheduling a meeting with FMPA for FPL, the city, and the city's transactional attorneys, since FPL has tried for weeks to schedule such a meeting. Contrary to that request, Mayor Winger's meeting does not include FPL or the city's transactional attorneys. However, in order to keep things moving toward a January 2015 closing, to meet with the mayor's desire to have a clear path forward this year, and as requested at the last City Council meeting, FPL does intend to present to the Utility and Finance Commissions on March 19th. Can you assist us in securing a spot on these agendas, and also let us know what information these two committees would like to see? As you know, we look forward to continuing to work in partnership with the mayor and the city to complete the sale as soon as possible. So that's what the email said, and I just wanted to read it in the record. And I should say that we are not presenting tomorrow, even though I asked to be on the agenda. After very shortly after I sent this email, I believe it was later that afternoon, I received a call from Mr. Gorey from the Finance Commission. He told me that he had spoke to the mayor, and that the mayor thought it would be best to wait until after the FMPA meeting for us to also address the Utility and Finance Commissions. So I just wanted to clarify that, since I had asked in this email to be on the agenda.
A question for you.
Sure.
When you and I, we met on February 28th, the city manager, myself, and Mr. Forrest, and at that point, the subject came up, and what was said, I think you'll confirm, is we have a letter from FMPA indicating they'd like to have a preliminary meeting first. And you said, I believe you said, if you can get us a preliminary meeting first is okay. Now, is that right or wrong? If you don't want us to have a meeting, we won't.
That meeting was after, I think the meeting you're talking about with Mr. Forrest was after the March 4th meeting. It was last week. It was on Thursday. Your council meeting was, well, it was 2 weeks ago.
But the principle of the thing is,
we asked for you at that meeting, we asked for you, if you're going to go to that meeting and you're going to go without us, then at least make it your goal at that meeting to get us to the table.
Which we agreed on.
That's what we asked you. But
we agreed to.
Yes, you did agree to that. And at March 4th, though our request was specifically for you to get a meeting with us and with the transactional attorneys, but then you came back and said you were going to have a meeting on your own.
Yes, but you all along it's been stated that if it took a meeting first to get them to agree to a meeting with you, that was acceptable.
We told you that if you wanted to meet with them, that was certainly your prerogative.
I don't really have a great need to.
If that succeeds us in moving forward, that's a good thing. If you come back from that meeting with progress forward towards this sale, ideally we think we should be there. We think your transactional attorney should be there. That is what our preference is. But at the same token, if this meeting results in positive movement forward, obviously we would support that.
Well, so what do we do? What do you want?
We want a meeting with FMPA, the city, and the city's transactional attorneys.
You know I'm committed. I wrote a piece last time. I'm committed to getting the sale done. Mm-hmm. And we have the two letters from your chairman or president and their chairman or president. And those letters seem to be leagues apart. We seem to be no closer than we were in February last year when the contract was signed, February 16th, or in August of the prior year when the letter of intent was done. So the idea is, can we get a useful conversation? I would also make one other point to you, and I think it's a point that the public should understand. The agreements that exist with FMPA or OUC or Florida Power and Light are agreements of the cities, not Florida Power and Light. All I'm trying to say is the responsibility for the agreements and negotiating out of the agreements is the cities. That's all I'm trying to say. So I have no problem. Let me put it another way. I think the city has to be involved because there are contracts.
We absolutely want the city at the table
And
every step of the way as partners going forward.
As
Absolutely.
Mrs. Turner pointed out, a lot of the contracts we shouldn't have.
Right. And they are your contracts. We are trying to help you out of those contracts with this $26 million.
You know, when we met in Juno Beach, the subject came up of whether Jim and I would be willing to be honest brokers in the thing and try to move it ahead. And you're Mr. Forrest, and you and your staff, I believe, said that you wanted us to do that. So again, I'm just trying to clarify, do you want us to do it or not do it? If you don't want to.
Of course we want your support. That's what I asked for on March 4th. First, we wanted the support of this concept, this option for going forward. When that was tabled, we wanted your support to get us all to the table together. Of course we want that. We've never deviated from that. And we've always said that we want us all to be together. This is you. But we're certainly not going to be able to tell you what you can and can't do. If you want to meet with them, ideally we hope that it moves it forward. That's what we would hope. If you're going to have that meeting, that's your decision to have. You told us that the transactional attorneys would not be attending, that we wouldn't be attending, and that you were bringing Mr. Christopher with you. And that was, what you told us you were doing.
Yes, but the reason for not having the transactional attorney is that in the March 5th letter from FMPA, they said they wouldn't have the meeting, but that we could bring our attorney, which is what we chose to do, which you have known all along. And the only reason that the city manager, myself, and Mr. Comet would be going would be to move the deal ahead. That would be the only reason.
That's very much what we want. And I really just wanted to clarify the situation of why we're not on the agenda, because I didn't, as it was sort of presented, that I wrote to Tammy and said, we don't want to be on the agenda, or please take us off the agenda. It was in response to you suggesting that it would be better to wait until after the April 2nd meeting.
And thank you for doing that, because it clarifies Mr. Wilson's allegation that I knew about it. I don't have any copy of that. I never had a copy of it.
No, but you knew about that discussion. You were part of that discussion.
I was part of the discussion, but I was not. I didn't have the memo, nor did I have anything to do with the agenda.
Well, Tammy's actually my email to Tammy was a response to her emailing me, which is the first part of that email that I didn't read. But basically, what it says to me is Mayor Winger said he's meeting with FMPA on April 2nd, so do you still want to be on the agenda on March 18th? And that's when I said you indicated that it would be better for us to wait. I was respecting what you had asked us in our meeting.
And I accept that. I'm in no way. Look, we're in this together.
Thank you for saying that. And like Amelia said, let's not get to the thank you for saying that. That's just what we want, is to all be in this, to move this forward. That is truly what we have wanted from the beginning.
All I'm trying to do is, a gentleman that came up before you made allegations that weren't true. And I had nothing to do with the agenda. What you say is accurate. We're in this together. We had those conversations, and they're accurate.
And we were really respecting your request to wait until after April 2nd. We had wanted to be, and actually, if I can clarify even further, the first discussion we had about being on the agenda tonight, you and I talked prior to that, and you had said, well, the Utility Commission doesn't meet till the 19th. I'm going to have a special call meeting on March 25th. That was our first discussion, and I agreed to that because it made sense, because you wanted the Utility and Finance Commission to vet it first. So we said, right, what are we going to say on March 18th, because it hasn't been to the Utility and Finance Commission? And you told me, you asked me, would it be okay to have a special call meeting on March 25th? I said that would be great. Then the next conversation was, we're not going to have a special call meeting because I'm going to meet with FMPA on April 2nd, and we'll meet after that.
Yeah, well, let's clarify that one also for the record. What happened was The FMPA offered us a meeting today, March 18th in Orlando. And they offered us one April 2nd, one April 7th, I think 12th and 14th.
Right.
And Jim said we couldn't possibly do both in one day.
Right.
So the thing that
April 2nd was the next closest date.
So we grabbed the next closest date. That was unfortunately after the Utilities Commission. And so therefore we didn't move forward with what you and I discussed.
Right. You asked us to wait till after meeting, and that's why I wrote back to Tammy, no, we're not going to be on the meeting, the agenda tonight, because you asked us. That's all I wanted to say.
So this is clarified?
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so. Thank you.
Let's,
Okay,
move
everybody's
on.
good. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a break.